And welcome to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV, Libertarian Party and Television, a production of the Libertarian Party. Dan Fishman, Executive Director and Executive Producer of this show. My name is Pat Ford, and I currently serve as the Chairman of the Libertarian Party of Rhode Island. There are a few purposes for this show. We want to give the Libertarian community an opportunity to meet our wonderful down-ballot candidates. At the end of virtually every show, Dan and I share a common thread, a common goal, that we realize that on this show this year will probably be a handful of folks who, in fact, given their experience, will be presidential candidates, vice presidential candidates, senatorial candidates in the year going forward. We want to challenge those candidates to incorporate what I'll call a lunch pail voter issue perspective through the prism of a libertarian philosophy into their day-to-day campaigning. And of equal importance, we want to create a common bond, a coal, if you will, to folks, whether they be in Maine, Florida, New Jersey, Rhode Island, as I am right now, Colorado, Connecticut, or California, that the candidates who are currently running for our down ballot positions, whether it be town council, whether it be a state representative or a state senator's position, perhaps, as we had one week, a gentleman running to be commissioner of a mass transportation district. Whoever, whatever, wherever those candidacies are, they are of equal importance to all of us throughout the country because they represent an opportunity for regular folks to bring to regular communities a libertarian perspective and a libertarian method of, dare I say, governing. Joining us tonight, two great candidates. We've got Hannah Waugh. She is the Libertarian candidate for District 3 County Commissioner in Lake County, Colorado. And joining us a little bit later on is Harold S. Harris. He's the Libertarian candidate for the Connecticut, the Big Fourth Senate District, comprising the municipalities of Andover, Bolton, Glastonbury, and Manchester. But first, let me say, Hannah, a big welcome to An Hour with the Candidates. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Of course. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I always open up the production with a question to each candidate. What was that moment in their life, that light bulb moment, that epiphany, that you recognized, that you realized that you were a libertarian and that the libertarian philosophy of self-ownership, that really meant something to your life? That was part of your DNA. What was your libertarian moment?
Oh, starting off with a hard question there. I discovered I was libertarian in 2014. I was disappointed by my both previous political parties that I had belonged to, and I had the opportunity to read one of Judge Jim Gray's books. And it just kind of hit me that I'm responsible for my own life, and nobody else can tell me what my responsibilities are, and nobody else can tell me what I get to do or what I get to choose. And that was the moment I realized that I was libertarian, and that meant more to me than any other political party ever had.
Mm-hmm. Jim Gray, of course, Judge Jim Gray, a warrior in the early days through today in the fight against the drug wars. Whenever I hear his name mentioned, I've had the fortune of meeting him a few times. I've had him on a variety of media efforts. I always want to recognize the heroic stance he took on an issue that today seems so commonplace, so agreed upon, so ordinary, that in the days that he began his fight against the drug war, he often stood alone. And very often that's the measure of a libertarian candidate, a willingness to challenge the status quo with a method of thinking that's not unconventional, but clearly completely different than the perspective that most Americans have right now with their personal relationship with government. So talk to us about Lake County, Colorado. Talk to us about the community, about the environment, the business climate, pre-COVID for the time being. What were the challenges or what were the issues concerning Lake County residents?
You know, Lake County is a unique place in Colorado. We're surrounded by resort communities. So we're surrounded by Eagle County on one side, Pitkin County, which has Aspen on the other side, as well as Summit County. And those all house the biggest ski resorts in the state. So you've got Eagle, which has Vail and Beaver Creek, and then Summit County, which has Breckenridge, Copper Mountain, Keystone, A Basin. all of these huge ski areas. So tourism is a huge base up here. And Lake County is honestly one of the last affordable places for our workers to live. About 66% of the workforce here in Lake County travels either to one of the 2 or 3 other counties to work in the tourism industry. So pre-COVID, our community was strong. We were focused on working outside the community, which is harder, but we had a strong workforce. Post-COVID and all the damages that we faced regarding travel restrictions and the resorts being shut down, it's hit our communities hard. It's not a place where the faint of heart live, in all honesty. You get snow 10 months of the year. It snowed in June, of course, a solid 2 or 3 inches this year. Last year it snowed 6 on the first day of summer. So it's not a place for the weak of heart, and they're very resilient, demanding souls who want the best for their families and the best for their business up here. And I've seen a lot of businesses fail up here because of the lack of support they get and the demand on the property taxes that they have to face, or their business taxes just to stay alive.
Do you find it astonishing that a variety of government bureaucrats, apparatchiks, et cetera, always pay lip service to small business? At least once a week, it's almost deemed that they say, well, small business is the backbone of fill in the blank, while they're on their way to signing a bill that eviscerates the financial support structure for small businesses, i.e. the economy. How often do you hear that in a place like Colorado, where you've got folks like Hickenlooper et al. Transforming what was one of the really amazing hotspots of American independence, whether it be the economy, the personal lifestyles, into, as we say lovingly here, socialist workers' paradise? How often do they pay lip service to that?
You know, you hear it a lot. I think one of the things we hear a lot in Colorado is, oh, we're super welcoming to small business. You know, we want business owners to grow. We want the entrepreneurs. We want people to grow their communities here. But they, you know, you get kind of fed that dream. And then these people end up failing because they realize they don't have the support that they were offered. They don't get the tax cuts that we see large corporations offered, and they end up struggling immensely. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to watch these business owners struggle as much as they do when they're just trying to feed their families and commit to having a good workforce in our community.
How is that then corresponded to, I will say, the delivery of goods and services by the government to the taxpayer? Do you get bang for your dollar, if you will?
I don't think we do. I mean, it's kind of a hot topic right now, especially as I think more people are realizing, you know, with the stimulus checks, oh, we all got these, well, some of us got $1,200 checks, depending on how much money you make. But it was also the, you know, money that the taxpayers paid. So you're getting your own money back. I think something more productive would have just been to cancel income tax for the next few years and let our taxpayers prosper in the sense that they don't have to pay to get their money back. They don't have to pay to get what they've already earned that the government's thriving off of, and then offering larger bailouts to billionaires that they don't need it.
Right. So the dichotomy here, where individual businesses continue to struggle, government, through their, if you will, their nationalization of the healthcare system, effectively presented blocks to entry by capitalist-based, individually financed, sweat equity healthcare providers, allowed us to be in a position where we aren't able to respond effectively to this crisis, while at the same time handing billions and billions to to large corporations who astonishingly had just registered record profits. Do people in your district understand fundamentally this is nothing less than a redistribution of their own personal assets?
I think people in Lake County are slowly starting to realize it. I think they're starting to notice that, hey, we pay extremely high property taxes in our county. And the question's always, well, where's my money going? And they're starting to realize their money's not doing what it was promised to be doing. And our income taxes aren't doing what we've promised that they were going to be doing. And so I think each voter in the county is finally starting to take responsibility and recognize that they're not being served in the way that they promised that they were going to be served. So it's kind of a huge movement right now as people recognize their responsibility to fight for their rights and their demands for how their money is spent if we're going to give it all to the government.
So let's talk about, if you will, education. Mm-hmm. Education consistently has been a hot button issue for all the candidates we've had on. How is your county or state good at delivering the, if you will, the goods in education?
You know, so I was born and raised in Lake County, and I had the opportunity to graduate from our school district. And at the time, our school district was not a great place to be. And I mean that in the most fond way possible. Like, I loved my experience, but I recognized that there were a lot of shortcomings. I think that our school district, I actually had a conversation with them recently, has done a great job in realizing that they have to show the voters and show the town what they're doing to further education in our community. Our school district serves about 1,000 kids. So we're small. I mean, we're very small, but they also know that these kids are going to grow up and go on to do great things. I mean, I know a lot of students that I went to school with have master's degrees in sociology, criminology. They're social workers, they're doctors, they're doing amazing things. And so the community is finally taking that effort to look back and say, here's what we're doing, here's how your funds are being spent. And I think that honesty is getting better, and that transparency, where we actually have belief in our education system up here now. And I think that for a long time, we didn't have that transparency that we needed, but we still demand more. I mean, I demand more transparency. And if I were to have a child at this point, I mean, I'd want to know how every single dollar that was going into the schools was being spent.
Are school systems in Colorado governed, if you will, at the county level? Are they done at the municipal level, or is it a statewide education funding formula?
It is a statewide education formula. It comes down from the Colorado Department of Education as well as the state budgets. And part of that, and I'm not as familiar with it as I should be, so I do regret that. But part of it comes from the state budgets, and then they're still working on what they call the negative factor, which they're trying to catch back up on the budgets that they had pulled money out of the schools to begin with. Right. So theoretically, you say, oh, we're going to give a school district $1 million, but because of the negative factor, they're only getting $700,000. And Colorado's per pupil spending amount is among some of the lowest in the country, where I think we're number 41, which is abysmal.
And it's fascinating because many of these school funding formulas, one of the urban myths that they propagate is that if you choose to take your child out of, as my friend Arvin would always say, theft education, and you choose to either homeschool them or have them in the dreaded private sector, whether it be a prep school or some type of religious-based education, then you are in fact taking money away from the state. You're taking money away from the school system. That somehow that money has been their property all along, and you are merely just a temporary recipient. Is there a strong tradition in your county of homeschooling and or some type of parochial or private-based education?
So we do not have any private-based schools in Lake County. We have just the one public school district. Some parents choose to send their children to school in Chaffee, Summit, or Eagle counties. But we don't have a very strong homeschooling or private schooling background here, just because most of these parents are working 2 jobs out of the county. It serves them better to have their children in public schools. And I wish that our public schools were, I don't want to say funded better, but I wish that we were able to have a better say in the children's education, rather than just following everything on the state level. I'd like to see our teachers get more of a say in what they're doing and how they want to return and how they think that their classes work better because they know the students better rather than the state does.
Right. So is the curriculum and the quote unquote Common Core driven at the state level?
It is, yes.
Tragic. It's hopefully one of the benefits of having strong libertarian candidates like yourself is spreading the mission and spreading the message, if you will, of essentially moving education away from a failed centrally planned government model into a local community where parents can make decisions, drive the finances, and provide, if you will, in partnership with the schools, not as opposed to the schools, an educational process that works for all children. It's starting to work in some places. I understand that it's a challenge. Economic development is there. What is it like in Lake County? Is there currently? It sounds like you're essentially a host community for the travel industry, and in a sense, you're the areas like Aspen, which I would imagine are just priced out of the range of mere mortals, is driving, if you will, the workforce over to Lake County. Is there any other type of economic development taking place?
We see a lot of, we're tourism based. That's the best way to put it. We're focused on serving those who want to come to Colorado and experience the high alpine environment. And we're very fortunate that we live in an absolutely beautiful space to do that. I may be biased. I think I live in a beautiful place. But we're just a hub for people to be able to afford to live because they can't afford rent in these other communities. There are not a lot of opportunities here in the county to live and work full time. We are fortunate to have a mine here in the county that serves a lot of people and is a great base for tax income in the county. But as we all know, mining is a fickle industry. It may not be around forever. And so it is concerning when we're facing so many challenges with restrictions and COVID-based issues that we shut down and we lose so many opportunities for work. Everything, if you were to drive down our main street, it's mostly restaurants and some outdoor backpacking and mountain adventure type businesses and a few tourist, souvenir shops. We don't have Walmarts. The closest Walmart's a 35-minute drive. So there's not a lot of opportunity for steady work in the county unless you're working for the mine. And that's hard on us. It's hard when you put restrictions and tell people that their jobs aren't essential when every job is essential to that person.
Right. Which leads me to the inevitable. It seems like every week we've got this patchwork of governmental approaches, if you will, and I'm using that term politely, to life, post-COVID, as if it's post at this point, I guess. What has the county's reaction been to this health crisis?
So Lake County has basically just been letting our public health lead the way. We've also been taking a lot of orders from the state. So we opened up when the state opened up, rather than writing a variance request to the state asking for our restaurants and such to open early. As of today, our governor has mandated that all Coloradans over the age of 10 are required to wear a mask in public areas. And we will, of course, follow that. But at the end of the day, at least to me, it all falls back on personal responsibility. If you're sick, if you're high risk, you know what damage you could be facing. But I really encourage our commissioners and our local government officials to say, hey, this is working in our county. We should be submitting variance requests to the state because we know what works best for us. While I respect our official decisions and things like that, and I wear a mask out of respect of private business owners, I'm not here to tell people how they should live their lives. I want to make sure that they're all functioning, properly. If you want to take the responsibility to go get your hair done, that's your choice. That's your responsibility. But we're just kind of letting the state dictate us right now. And I don't know that that's necessarily the best option for every county in Colorado.
Now, I want to explore a project that you're involved with, and I know that Seth Levy is one of the folks spearheading along with Matt Kibbe. And that's the concept of restorative justice. And from a libertarian perspective, and particularly given the challenges of the criminal justice system everywhere in this country, you folks have an event coming up, and the fact that libertarians are on the ground floor, if you will, of spearheading something called restorative justice, is I think ennobling, and it gives me great personal joy. Can you just talk a little bit about restorative justice and its approach to criminality and the criminal justice system?
Yeah, of course. So I'm super excited and proud to be working with Seth and Matt and surrounding communities regarding restorative justice. I think that restorative justice is something that, again, puts the responsibility back on the people. It allows the victim of a crime to determine how the perpetrator or assailant, whatever term you want to use there, should serve their community to make reparations for what they've done. And I just see a lot of strength in this, in the way that it limits the powers of our criminal justice system. It limits the powers of our police officers. I'm not one to sit here and say, oh, defund the police. Like, no, we still need to have them for serious reasons. But at the same time, I believe that we should be putting the power back on the people and saying, you hurt me, you stole from me, you caused damage to my property, to my life. Like, how about instead of you going to jail for 6 months, you now have to do lawn care and mow my lawn and take care of my landscaping once a week for the next 2 years. And you get that sense of that person's fixing the damage that they caused. And that, I think, will better serve our communities to kind of take away that eye for an eye mentality and allow us to kind of grow and get better, and kind of take us away from that straight path to jail, and allow people who may be in situations that are, against them, to grow and see that they do have opportunities outside of a life of prison. And I think it's important, and I'm excited to work on that and bring it forward to our rural communities to give the chance to spend our tax dollars elsewhere.
And I want to stress that this, what's unique about this, it's actually a collaborative process, isn't it? I mean, part of the process is actually the raw, very raw sometimes, admission of guilt on a very direct basis between, if you will, the criminal and those impacted. And I want to stress too, you folks have got an event coming up. I'd love to have you tell us about that. But from your experience in studying this and what's gone on in some adjacent communities, how powerful has that been?
I can speak on the terms of Longmont, Colorado. And if you aren't familiar with Longmont, they're a suburb of kind of Boulder and Denver, and they have had great success with their restorative justice program. So with restorative justice, it's on the perpetrator of the crime and the victim of the crime to both say, hey, I would like to go through the restorative justice process. And with that being said, I think at last data in it, they had one person who had recommitted a crime after going through the restorative justice process. And I'm super excited that we have the opportunity to bring this to our rural communities up in Lake County and Eagle County, the surrounding areas, because it gives us the opportunity to spend our tax dollars again elsewhere while making our communities a more productive, progressive way of life. We have the opportunities to serve each other, which I think gives each of us more of a purpose.
No, that's fabulous. I'm going to post later on the details about the event, and hopefully this is a project that can resonate throughout the entire libertarian community. So my hat's off to Mr. Kibbe, Mr. Levy, and of course your involvement as well, for bringing solutions to your community. And that, of course, is it sounds almost simple, right? It's almost cliche. The mantra is, if you come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. It's critical that libertarian candidates around the country not just be negative or incendiary or anti-government. We need to not only discuss, not only promote, but also engage in actual solutions where we can demonstrate the weaknesses and failure of a central government, and at the same time support that powerful, positive message of libertarianism. So congratulations on that. We've only got a couple of minutes. How is campaigning, Ben? What methods are you using to campaign? And maybe if we can put up on screen, if it's possible, if not, we'll do it afterwards, some of your social media.
Yeah, so I've been, of course, COVID's thrown a wrench in everything. You don't necessarily have the opportunities to go to the large events that we so typically have in our community. So it's been a lot of Facebook, a lot of kind of spreading the message, utilizing our local newspaper, utilizing, podcasts and TV shows to kind of really get the message out there. I'm fortunate that our community is very engaged in politics this year. No matter what their political opinions are, people are very engaged on what they want to see. So I've been very fortunate that there are a lot of people out there spreading my message and wanting to hear more about what I believe and what I see for the future of Lake County. It's getting down to, we're about 100 days away or so from election, which is crazy stressful. And we're getting ready to get door knockers going. We're getting ready to have yard signs go up. And I'm fortunate to have a very supportive group of amazing people who are also focusing on making large billboards and banners for me that will be put around town. And then my, of course, amazing campaign team, led by Seth, has done a great job with my website, as well as with my Facebook, on keeping everyone engaged in my beliefs and not the promises I want to make, because I don't believe in promises, but my 5-year plan for the county and how we can move forward and have a great future for every citizen here.
In the minute or two we've got left, now we'd like to say we'd like you to engage in shameless self-promotion. So where can folks find you on the interwebs? Where can folks donate? Where can folks volunteer?
Oh, of course. So you can connect with me on hannahforlakecounty.com. You can see that there on the bottom of your screen. I feel like Vanna White. Obviously don't have that skill set yet. I'm also terrible with self-promotion. Seth laughs at me all the time for that. But you can either find me on facebook.com/hannahforlakecounty or hannahforlakecounty.com. If you're interested in getting involved in volunteering or donating, that can all be done through my website. We're super active. I love it. I love getting to write the thank you notes to every person that reaches out to me. I think that's probably been my favorite part of campaigning, is being able to connect with people who just support the libertarian message and support the drive for personal responsibility, and getting to hear their support in growing the libertarian government, which also is kind of ironic there, because we never want to grow the government. But we knew where I was going with that.
Well, you want to get elected to be a commissioner, if you will, of Lake County, and then you ultimately want to leave people alone, don't you?
Pretty much. I mean, your life is your life. I'm not here to tell you how to live it. Just don't harm me and I won't harm you.
That's excellent. Well, again, we'll have you on just before we end the show, but congratulations. Folks have heard me say this 1,000 times. I believe that running for political office, running for candidacies like these, like county commissioner, town school boards, water boards, mayoralties, state representative and senate positions, is the ultimate form, if you will, I believe, of what I'll call a libertarian patriotism. And what I mean by that is not just an admiration of a flag, a symbol, a country, a power structure, but your willingness at great personal sacrifice to immerse yourself in the affairs of a community as a volunteer, as someone looking for, with no ulterior motive, looking for no personal gain, but simply as a volunteer, voluntarily promote, if you will, a shared solution for the problems and the issues and the challenges and the joys that face a community. There is no greater act, if you will, of libertarian patriotism. So congratulations on that, and we'll have you back in just a few minutes before we end the show. Folks, if you're just joining us, you are listening to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV. That's the Libertarian Party Television. You can find us all over Facebook and on the Libertarian Party YouTube channel. It is a production of the Libertarian Party, Dan Fishman, both executive producer and executive director. I want to thank Dan for having the vision to start LPTV. It's a growing, burgeoning enterprise. More shows are going to be added now that we are post-convention in the run-up to the election. And the promise of this show is to somehow manage to get every down ballot candidate in America on the air in front of a camera so that they can express themselves, they can reach out to the libertarian community, and really promote the notion of voluntary government. Joining us now is our second guest, Harold S. Harris. He is the Libertarian candidate for Connecticut, as we like to say, the Big Fourth Senate District. It comprises Andover, Bolton, Glastonbury, and Manchester. My grandma spent her final years in Manchester, Connecticut, a lovely little town just outside of scenic 384, which is Interstate 384, which is in itself a living testament to government waste, because it reaches partially between the great cities of Providence and Hartford. Like most things government, it was never completed. There was never really a goal, but somebody made some money in there somewhere, so I guess that counts. And so for about 10 minutes on the hour and a half, 40-mile ride between Providence and Hartford, you can drive at highway speeds. Harold, welcome to the show. We've had the opportunity to meet. We met at the Libertarian Party of Connecticut's great convention. It was, I believe, one of the last conventions before the plague hit. Had a great time with great people. The battle for liberty is alive and well in the great state of Connecticut.
It was February 28th.
Wow.
Actually, it was February 29th. It was leap year.
Right. And we left that night comfortable in the knowledge, again, that you guys were fighting the great fight. A number of candidates were there. A number of speakers were there. Folks, Libertarian presidential candidates dialed in. And we left saying, this is a great start to the convention season. Let's bring it on. We'll see you on the next step. Oh, well. So there we had it. And COVID. So Harold, give us your libertarian moment. What was that moment in your life, that epiphany that said, you know what? I understand freedom and liberty and self-ownership are the most important parts of my DNA.
Well, I can tell you almost the day the dam broke, okay, but there's a lot that built up behind the dam before it broke. And that the day the dam broke was like about 2 weeks before the Republican convention, and not the primary in Connecticut, when there was only like 3 Republicans left. About 2 weeks before that, I said, screw it. I'm not even going to stay in to vote for the primary.
Right.
And I went down and I wrote libertarian on the, because you can't say, you have to write in libertarian. It's not a checkbox. My hand was shaking so much I could hardly even hold a pen. I was so upset. But it had been a long time in building behind that, because I had been a Democrat for about 40 years, and then they shifted and shifted and shifted, and then to the point where I would be like what you call a moderate Democrat. In Connecticut is very progressive, and pretty much they threw all the moderate Democrats out of the party. Right. And so I went to the Republican Party and for about 5 or 6 years, and helped some people get elected. And the biggest problem I had was they were always promising to be fiscally conservative, but they weren't, which is my biggest thing, which is the, taxed enough already business. I just couldn't take it anymore, and I went online to see what does the Republican Party really stand for, and then I went online to see what the Democratic Party really stood for, and neither one of them had a really concise explanation of what they stood for. And then I happened to stumble on the Libertarian Party, which I knew a little bit about, but not that much. And I read the platform and all that stuff, and I said, my God, that's me. And so that was when I went down and changed parties. So it was April, I think it was April of 2016. It was like 2 weeks before the Republican primary.
Excellent. Well, let me set the stage in Connecticut, because the state of Connecticut is a very special place. Here is the central irony. The state of Connecticut may, and this is how far they've fallen, maybe the only state in America that is effectively rescued from complete financial collapse by the dread COVID disease. And I'll explain why. The disease has exhibited itself so desperately and at such a terrible level and at such a terrible cost to New York City that for the first time in years,
Yep.
property taxes are slated to increase because there is a move away from New York City. So the state of Connecticut could not on its own essentially run as adults a state. The only thing saving them is, if you will, a sudden influx from New York City residents with wealth into what's often referred to as the Gold Coast of Connecticut. The state of Connecticut is failed in every way. It is unable to deliver goods and services to its constituents. It became notable on a national level when the General Electric Corporation basically decided to flee Connecticut and moved to what was formerly called Taxachusetts. And so the notion that the wake-up call to America, if you will, was that the state of Connecticut was just so profligate in its spending, so inept in its delivery of goods and services to its constituents, that in fact, Taxachusetts represented a tax haven to companies in Connecticut, which is astonishing. So what led to all this? Harold, what caused all this mess?
Well, I came into Connecticut in 1969. I came here from Iowa with a degree in aerospace engineering and went to work at Pratt & Whitney.
Right.
And at the time, I was the second highest class, number of people coming into Pratt & Whitney. The year before, in 1968, was the highest hiring binge. And then 2 years later, in 71, they started laying people off. And almost every person that I hired in with was gone. And so there was a number of things that happened that created problems. Some of them technical, like the technology came in and you started having machines that could do more of the work. The other thing was, another thing that a lot of people don't think about is that in order to get a lot of the business that was done in Connecticut was government contract work, like Electric Boat and Pratt & Whitney and things like that. And so when the Vietnam War ended, a lot of that work went away. So that hurt the state. And the other thing that happened was there were a lot of job shops and stuff in the state that supported the industry. But in order to get contracts, people found out that it was good to have lobbyists in a lot of different states. So companies like Pratt & Whitney and stuff, instead of having everything sourced in Connecticut, they started building satellite plants up in Maine and down in Georgia and out in California, so that they could get more more senators and reps to support them in their quest to get government money. And so this is the whole. Once again, this is something that happens in the industry that people don't. Unless you're in it, you don't really recognize it. That going after the big bucks from the federal government, they tried to get more lobbyists, and they did that by shipping jobs out to other states. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the things that were kind of like out of control of the state, the governor and the state reps and those. But the things that were in the control of it is when they watched that happen, they didn't do anything about it. They started, instead of trying to figure out alternative ways to create jobs and keep taxes down, they went the other way. They raised taxes and started giving more welfare money out to the people that were unemployed instead of trying to find them jobs. So that put more of a tax burden on both the businesses that remained and the people. Mm-hmm. And so they acted inappropriately to the problems they faced. Subsequent to that, it's kind of like you raise the taxes and people leave. And so one of the things that's happened was we have a very mature population that works in the factories and stuff, and basically when they retire, they leave the state, and so their pension income and all that leaves the state. So there's a constant flow of productive people out of the state.
Hmm.
The only thing that saves us, I mean, we'd be a lot worse now if it wasn't for what I call the legacy. There's a lot of companies that are here that, have been here for a long time, 50, 60 years, and they're still here and they're still hiring people, and they're innovative in their own right to figure out how to make money in the state that we're in. We tend to produce really high-end, high-tech type products that you can charge a little extra for because nobody else can do them.
Hmm.
And since we still have those businesses here, that's the only thing that's kept us from falling flat on our face.
Right.
I call that legacy. We're relying on a legacy that is being eroded away. It's eventually going to go, and we're not doing anything to recoup it.
It's interesting because, and sad at the same time, there are two tax indices that you look for, and one of them is something called the effective tax rate. On an individual basis, the state of Connecticut is number 50 out of 51 in the terms of the highest personal effective tax rate in the nation. In terms of property taxes, the state of Connecticut is number 48 in terms of the highest effective property tax rate in the nation. And that's not even counting in something more nuanced, which is the corporate effective tax rate, amongst my understanding is in the worst 10, if you will. So the taxes, are number one in Connecticut with a bullet in the nation. And the question comes up, why would a company locate there? Can you think of any compelling reason why a company should locate to Connecticut?
I know what the reasons used to be, but they're pretty much gone now. I have a small business and I supply some of the companies. And one of the companies I supply, they located in Connecticut about 20 years ago because it was between Boston and New York, and they did business in both places.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the proximity relative to those major metropolitan areas that was advantageous. Instead of being in one or the other, they're in between.
Tell us just a little bit about your business. What type of work do you do?
Okay, I have an injection molding business. I make plastic parts in a process called injection molding.
Right.
I used to, up until 2009, I used to have a shop in Manchester where I physically made the parts with my own equipment. In 2009, when everything crashed, I shipped my manufacturing equipment out to Indiana, and since then, I'm more of this is my office right here. I subcontract out all my work to suppliers in Connecticut and other locations, and then deliver them, so I'm like not exactly sure. I'm more than a sales rep because I take financial responsibility. I do the invoicing and all that kind of stuff. But I do engineering design work. I do the tool designs, and I work with with my supplier base to supply my customers.
Do you think Americans, whether it be in Connecticut or Rhode Island or anywhere across the country, truly understand what the loss of folks like you ultimately, in terms of locally manufacturing as well, what in terms of machine tooling, in terms of product design, in terms of things like injection molding, all of which are fundamental to a manufacturing economy? Do you think folks truly understand what the gradual loss of that capacity means to our economy, means to our ability to defend ourselves as a nation?
No, they don't have a clue. The thing about Massachusetts, the University of Massachusetts was one of the best colleges in the world for learning how to be a plastics engineer, learning about plastics and that technology. And that's why there was a very high population in this area between, people compounders that make the different plastic materials and the injection molders and the blow molders and stuff like this. This was like the heart of that whole thing. But because of the, competition from overseas and other states, I mean, the first thing that happens is people move to other states and then they move overseas.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so because of all that, we no longer have any tool makers. And tool makers are you can't do manufacturing without tool makers to make the tooling for your automated processes and stuff. So, and literally, I mean, they're dying. They're literally dying off. You're not creating any new ones. The ones that are still in the state are they're slowly drifting. Slowly retiring or dying off. And it's not a skill that's replaceable.
Right.
It's a skill that first you have to become a machinist, and then you build your way up before you can have the skills to be a tool maker.
Right. And folks need to understand that, and I'm a pacifist, I'm anti-war, but our ability to defend ourselves as a nation in World War II rested on two distinct groups of people. Number one, the brave men and women, the greatest generation who traveled the world in the defense of liberty. Number two, as a nation, we manufacture our way to victory in World War II. I can't stress that enough. And so much of innovation, even in peaceful products, if you will, whether it be tech, whether it be product design, whether it be consumer manufacturing, relies on the ability to support the fundamentals of a manufacturing economy. And I just want to point out, not to turn this into a lesson on the aerospace industry, but there was a time when General Electric up in Lynn, Massachusetts, and Pratt & Whitney down in southwestern Connecticut, and with a healthy dose of Rolls-Royce thrown throughout, incredibly enough, New England was one of the centers of aircraft manufacturing on the planet. Government interference, high taxes, poor education systems essentially gutted that.
Yep.
And it's an object lesson for all of us as libertarians, what can happen in real time in front of us in our lifetimes to an economy. People keep talking about, let's have manufacturing. From your experience,
there's no switch.
Well, thank you. Is it possible, in Connecticut, just to turn manufacturing back on?
But like I said, there's a legacy of the companies here that you can't turn it back on, but you could turn it around and still have a base to build on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that's dwindling away. Like I said, the people that know how to do it are dying off.
Right.
Like I'm 73 years old. I'm not. I'm one of the few people that still works at this age. So
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people have gone to Florida for retirement by now. A lot of the people I know. Yet the other day, one of my Facebook friends, he's out in Utah or something, not Utah, Nevada, in Phoenix area, and he just celebrated his 40th wedding anniversary, and I was thinking he said 50th because I'm almost on my 50th wedding anniversary. So here, I'm 10 years older than him, and he's already gone.
Right.
And so there's not too many of us left. And
your successful election as a senator in the great state of Connecticut, the nutmeg state. Always try to talk a little bit about a little bit of geography lesson here. What is your primary goal? If you win and you're dropped down into the Senate, if you had your choice of an issue to focus on for the next couple of years as a Connecticut state senator, what would it be?
The number one is education. Number two is the economy.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things about Connecticut is we have the best and the worst. We have some of the best educated people in the country, and we have some of the poorest educated people in the country. I think by some metrics we have like the biggest gap between the top and the bottom. And you can look at that in graduation rates from people that in my webpage, there's a chart that I put in that measures dropouts by whether or not they receive supplemental food from in school. So the poorer communities where the kids need to be fed at school, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they drop out, and they never get their degrees, and it's like I can't remember from the charts, like a 15% difference in that needs to be solved. And I think personally that can be solved by having school choice. You know,
Okay.
my concept would be that if you had school choice, then the money that the government takes and gives to the bureaucrats to run these factory schools could be channeled better to the smaller communities and to organizations that are concerned about those students. You know, I was just recently appointed to the board of directors of a company called, or a nonprofit called the Scribe Institute, and they work in Hartford to help the children of Hartford get exposure to things. You know, they go to class on Saturdays, and people like me that have experience, we come in and tell them what it's like to be an engineer or what it's like to be a doctor, and they go on field trips to companies and things like that to kind of
Wow.
encourage them, to show them that there's something to look forward to in life besides living in the streets. And so, but there are organizations like that are willing to step forward and help these kids if there was the money to support them. And I think that, you know, something like you know, school choice would help that if the money was given to the parents to allocate rather than to the bureaucrats.
Oh, that's outstanding.
By the way, I have on my webpage, today we just put in a petition to ask people to sign a petition to support that effort. And so it's on my webpage at heraldforct.com. Under the events page, there's a petition there that people can sign if they're supportive of that kind of schooling.
That's outstanding. I mean, that type of effort is the epitome of the libertarian philosophy in terms of volunteering. We as libertarians, as candidates and as ordinary members of the party, leadership or not, need to provide not just a roadmap for the communities that we wish to be involved in candidacies to run, but we also need to show folks our resume and our on the street experience, being dedicated volunteers to the community to walk that walk. And that's been a consistent theme throughout all the candidates that we've had on An Hour with the Candidates, because they know, they sense from people that they recognize that legitimacy in spirit and in practice.
Yeah.
So congratulations on that.
If you want to bring it up, click on the events on the picture on the screen you got up, and then current and school choice petition. That's it. So if you go there, you can sign our petition and tonight, while we're on this meeting, the SCC is voting whether they're going to include that in our statewide webpage as well. You know, under LPT, you know, ctlpt.org. I got the letters mixed up. I think you got it on the screen there someplace.
No problem.
Yeah, lpct.org. They're voting tonight to put that petition on the state website as well.
Well, we've only got a couple minutes left. How is, and I know that you folks in Connecticut are facing some rigorous ballot issues. Briefly, how is that going?
Okay, I'm the plaintiff in that, and right now we're at the federal level. We didn't quite make it at the first step, and I'm not up with all the language, but there's a first federal judge turned us down, and now we're appealing to the second level of federal judges, circuit court or whatever they want to, Court of Appeals. And that's why when we were talking before about taking a shameless poke, if people would donate money to lptct.org to help us pay for the lawyers for that activity, it would be nice.
And Dan and the entire state party has really been sort of the Perry Masons, if you will, of the of the libertarian world.
And Dan's a bulldog when it comes to that stuff.
He has. He's funded entire petition drives at the expense of a variety of municipalities in the state of Connecticut. We are a taxpayer supported party, if you will, in the state of Connecticut. Have you had much luck in terms of reaching out to people and campaigning, given the challenges presented by COVID?
Well, that's the problem is it's very, the typical way to get a petitioning done is you take the form and you go out to a Memorial Day parade or something, and you get 40 or 50 signatures in a couple of hours. Under the COVID thing, we need to do everything online. I've been going out to places like parks and things like that to try to find people. But it's very difficult. You only see 5 or 6 people there at a time instead of hundreds. And so it's a very slow and tedious process. Takes a lot more time. But I can also, we set up also on the web page under volunteer, you can go in and sign my petition there, and because we've got to deal with the state that we can do it electronically rather than with those typical forms that we used to always use. So if anybody wanted to, that's a voter in Manchester or Glastonbury, Andover, and Bolton, they can go on to my webpage under the volunteer, and they'll find a petition that they could fill out and sign that would help me get on the ballot.
Excellent. Well, the website is harold4ct.com. And of course, the Libertarian Party can be found at lpct.org. Again, congratulations on your efforts, both as a Libertarian, as a volunteer. It's this sort of spiritual commitment to lead one's life as a Libertarian that is, quite frankly, the greatest campaign of all. And when they see that among,
I can tell you a couple stories about that.
Well, you and I will have that conversation. Absolutely. Can we bring on our other candidate?
I'm back.
You're back.
Welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
So in the remaining couple minutes, first of all, Hannah Waugh, she's running as a Libertarian candidate for District 3 County Commissioner in Lake County, Colorado, joining Harold S. Harris as Libertarian candidate for the Connecticut Big Fourth Senate District, comprising Andover, Bolton, Glastonbury, and Manchester. First of all, Hannah, just in listening to Harold's conversation about being a volunteer, how important is that from your perspective as a member of a small community?
Our community runs on volunteers, and I think it's something that we don't always think about. We're very sometimes caught up in how busy we are in our regular life that we forget that volunteers are kind of the backbone of everything that we do in every community, especially in small communities. You have volunteers who go out and they collect signatures for petitions, or they clean the community, or they serve our local food banks. And those are really the people that go above and beyond the regular call of a citizen. And I have a soft spot in my heart for every volunteer, mainly because I am one as well.
Ultimately, volunteers do the job of government without needing the title or the affirmation or the blessing of government. And that's, like I said, the strongest message, if you will, from a Libertarian candidate. Harold, I wish we could beam you down into Lake County and talk manufacturing a little bit, because it seems like not only does Connecticut need a little dose of manufacturing, it seems like Lake County could. You got any messages for Hannah and her challenges in a semi-rural community that's really supported by travel?
What it is the precursor to any manufacturing or any kind of job creation is creativity. And people that have something that drives them forward to create something. They have an idea and they want to drive it home. So whether it's manufacturing or, a daycare center or anything like that, there are people, the term is entrepreneur, but it's more than just an entrepreneur. You have to be a creative person that has creative ideas. And so what you need to do is not stop those people. Mm-hmm. You can't start them. You can't you can't find those people. You can't figure out how to turn them on. They exist, and the only thing that stops them is the government. It's a natural trait in that people have. I think it's something that comes back from evolution. You had to solve the problems. That's why we invented fire and all those kind of things. So it's there, and the only way you can bring it out is just don't stop it. Don't get in the way. Mm-hmm. And that's what the government has to do, is clear the path, so that if you have an idea, that at least the government doesn't try to stop you from going.
That's an outstanding message, and I think that's the message I want to leave hanging in closing tonight. Allow the talents and spirit of an individual with a mission to create. Allow them to prosper and prevent government from being the obstacle. I think that's a message for all of us for the ages. Folks, I want to thank our two candidates for joining us tonight. We've given you ample opportunity. The show will be in replay, by the way. Ample opportunity to reach out to them, support them financially, support them spiritually. Volunteer if you happen to be in their area, or if you find the spirit from today's show provocative. In your local community, find a libertarian candidate to support in any method possible. Petitioning, donating, being that person that folds the envelopes and puts them in the mail, make some phone calls. There's opportunities to phone bank around the nation. There's opportunities to petition around the nation. Get involved, take it personally. You've been listening to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, production of the Libertarian Party. Dan Fishman, Executive Director and Executive Producer, to whom I thank for the inspiration for creating this show. My name is Pat Ford. If you're interested in joining us, hourwiththecandidates@gmail.com. Reach out to me there or on the Facebook. Next week, I've got a couple of folks from New York, because their state chairman is very proactive in providing candidates. We will get every candidate, every down ballot candidate for the Libertarian Party on the air this year. I promise you that. Let's all get involved. See you next Friday.
Thank you.